we're going to start off by having a look at some of the equipment that we're going to be using as we learn how to row. And rowing, the distinction is that rowing is probably what you more associate with Oxford and Cambridge, where each person has got one, we call them blades, one oar, and they hold them in two hands. Whereas sculling is when you have one blade in each hand and you do something like that, as you will soon learn. So there's a lot of jargon involved. It's important when you are dealing with me as a coach or anybody else that when they ask you to do things with bits of the equipment, you understand which bits they're talking about. So this is just an overview of the bits of the boat which are important to know. If there are bits which are unimportant, I will point them out. So don't feel that you have to learn every single thing first time round. I will keep using the same jargon until you become familiar with it. So let's have a look at this metal thing sticking out the side of the boat. Okay? This is called a rigger, and it's rather important. The reason it is important because it carries this. Remember, it's upside down, so normally this would be on top. And this thing here, which swivels around, is called a swivel, which is a very appropriate name for something that does that. And this is where we're going to put our blade, and to do that we need to open up what's called the gate. So this is the gate here, and what we use to open it is this little thing at the end called the nut knob. Yes, it is called the nut knob. Now these nut knobs are designed not to fall off. They sort of lock automatically before they drop it off, but sometimes that lock doesn't work and you can be calmly distracted and undoing your nut knob and it falls in the water, which means you can't lock your gate, which means this boat is inoperable. So anytime you open this up, particularly at that point where you're sort of getting a little bit confident, don't be distracted. And often I will sort of say, open up your gates, be careful, not too far. Okay. So one of the things that's really interesting to note is that when you undo the nut knob like this and open it up, if you watch the way that the nut knob actually locks, it overlaps. It's like a sort of a cap that overlaps like this. Watch the way it overlaps now. And then it just stops naturally there. At this point here, without any tightening, it's really rock solid. So don't spend too much time trying to put too much force on it, otherwise you can strip the inside and again make it useless. Now you know how to put your blade in and stuff like that. Let's just have a look at this boat. I mean, this is a boat for 8 people, and at the far end, which is called the stern, at the back of the boat, you've got some guy who's sort of steering like this, and he's called the cox. Okay. It's possible to have the cox at the other end of the boat, but that's a bit exceptional. We will be dealing with people who sit in the stern, what's called a stern loader. This is a rowing boat for 8 people. For 4 people, it's called a four. For 2 people, it's called a pair. And for 1 person, it's a mistake. Okay. Sculling, on the other hand, where you're like this, we have some over here. And so you've got sculling riggers here, same sort of setup, rigger, swivel, nut knob, gate, and so on. Now if you've got a, just on your own, you've got a single, like the one on the top there, then you can have, for 2 people it's a double, and for 4 people it's a quad. They do have sculling for 8, which is called noctuplet, but generally they're used by school children, for the same reason that I use an 8, so that 1 person can look after 8 people in 1 crew, rather than having 8 boats flashing around like water boatmen all over the place.